to start going after them heavily with, I mean, are we going to have to change our existing structure to do that? Because it seems like we already have an
Everything's in
arsenal.
place.
Yeah, why don't we just...
Everything's in place, but this is for homeless. There's a huge homeless camp in here, and that's what all these people are here to talk about.
But the only reason it's happening is because this is so overgrown and it's
Overgrown and absentee owners.
right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So,
Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
so what? You know, you kind of like the idea, though.
Why not?
I know, right?
You ready? Call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. Meeting of Thursday, June 27th, 2019, the Clearlake City Council. Before I start, any written material introduced into record, citizens wishing to introduce written material into record at the public meeting on any item are requested to provide a copy of the material to the city clerk prior to the meeting date, so the material may be distributed prior to the meeting. So that said, can we have roll call?
Councilmember Purdock.
Here.
Councilmember Overton. Here. Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Vice Mayor Slutin.
Here.
And Mayor Kramer.
Here. Okay. Mr. Slutin, could you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the invocation. Paul Smith, I believe, is going to offer it tonight. Paul, are you here? Well, would anyone else like to lead or provide the invocation?
With your permission, Mr. Mayor, I would like to offer a moment of silence for the fallen Sacramento police officer who lost
Absolutely.
her life.
Okay. You can sit down and okay. Adoption of the agenda. Anybody have any changes or pull the agenda, Mr.?
No modifications, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Seeing none. We'll adopt the agenda.
Motion to adopt?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Mr. Harris and seconded by Mr. Purdock. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Our first thing will be presentation of our Clearlake Animal Control of June's adoptable dogs. I hope, Mr. Hobbs, that you're not going to bring an alligator into the chambers.
This is Win. He's about 5 years old. He's pretty picky. Treats. He's neutered, vaccinated, microchipped. He's our longest resident to date at the shelter. We had him in a kind of a pool party today with another dog. He loves water, loves people, short walks. He is a heavy breather. I'm pretty sure one time John had him out for a walk and Willow and he like the truck out together because he was a little lazy, just needs a little bit of exercise. Would benefit from OBH training, obviously, every dog would.
I see him taking a ride with Officer Moretz a week or so ago. Thank you. If I didn't have 3 cats, I'd consider it.
Thank you, Charmaine.
So for those watching, if you'd like to, you're interested in adoption, you can call us 707-273-9440 or visit the shelter Monday through Friday, 12 to 4 p.m. at 6280 Old Highway 53, the old airport property.
Thank you, Charmaine. Lieutenant
Good evening,
Hawks.
council members. I'm going to give you a quick update on the statistics for the Animal Care and Control Bureau as of today. So far this year, we've taken in 249 dogs. 1 is currently being fostered. 1 escaped. 27 have been euthanized. 30 have been adopted. 50 have been returned to owners. 142 have been rescued. So the live release rate for year to date is 89%.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. Chief White, you have a police officer to...
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, and members of the public. It's my pleasure this evening to introduce our newest police officer, Jesus Loera. Officer Loera was born in Reedley, California, and moved from his hometown of Orange Cove, California, and into the Lake County area just recently. His parents are Jesus and Julie. He has 4 siblings, Angelica, Jessica, Vanessa, and his brother Andrew, who is a police officer in Porterville, California. Jesus graduated from Orange Cove High School in June of 2012. He then attended the California University of Fresno, where he obtained a Bachelor of Science degree in criminology and an option in victimology in May of 2017. He then attended the Fresno Police Academy in October of 2018 and recently graduated on April 5th. Prior to attending the academy, Jesus worked with troubled youth in group homes, and he also served as a tutor at the Fresno County Juvenile Justice Center. During his free time, he enjoys spending time with his family and his girlfriend, Brenda. His other interests include physical fitness and traveling. So we're very excited to welcome him to the team. And at this time, I'll call up his mother and father to do the badge pinning, and then we'll administer the oath of office. Right, so if you raise your right hand, you repeat after me. I'll state I, you'll state your name. I
Jesus Loera,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
that I will well and faithfully
that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Was that our last, Officer Laura, fill our,
Unfortunately not. We have to fill one position.
One more.
still. We were close.
welcome, Officer Laura.
Yes, welcome.
Okay, now we move on to public comment. It's time for any member of the public to address City Council on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. If you haven't, please complete a speaker information card and present it to the city clerk prior to this, well, the meeting's already started, but Brown Act, with limited exceptions, does not allow the council or staff to discuss issues brought forth under public comment. The council cannot take action on non-agenda items. Concerns may be referred to staff or placed on the next available agenda. Please note that comments from the public will also be taken on each agenda item. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. First one on the list that I have here is Jeff Smart. Mr. Smart, you can step.
So we're having some issues near our house. We live near Acacia Street, which is across the street from Pomo School. There's been several fires behind our house. There's a homeless encampment behind our house, several trailers. There was a fire last week. I think it was the beginning of last week. They've given you some maps too to kind of map it out, what's going on and where it's happening. Yeah, that one. And I've had my house shot at in the past couple years. I have bullet holes in my upstairs bathroom. Phil Harris has seen it. I've called the police several times there. Lots of riprap going on. We called the police a couple weeks ago and they said they would do more patrolling, which it looks like they have been doing more patrolling. I'm seeing them more around there, so it's definitely a lot more interaction there. You know, the main thing is my house is completely surrounded by city lots, and they're maintained because we keep complaining about it, but they're not maintained to the standard of there's still brush and grass and weeds and everything around my yard. I work 50 to 60 hours a week. I don't have time to clean the city's lots. I don't have time for that. I've spent probably 2 weekends this year already cleaning around my property, which doesn't belong to me. Not only do I spend my time doing it, I pay to get rid of it. So it's kind of frustrating. That's pretty much all I have to say at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smart. Yeah, there's got 2 more comments, so I'll get them down. Hold on. The next one on the list, Jessica Telefaro.
Hello, everyone. Jess Talafaro. I live right behind Pomo School at 14070 Eastlake Drive. Many of you up there know exactly where I live. I'm here to discuss a hidden problem. Across the street from Pomo School, there are acres and acres of trash. I know you've been there. I know many of you have been over there and actually picked it up. I appreciate that. There's motorhomes, there's trailers, boats, and of course the homeless people. This is a community problem that all of us need to be all hands on deck and help take care of. If you're here in the audience today and I'm speaking for you, can you please stand up? So we have rallied our neighbors. This is the people who live directly around Pomo School and people who are affected by this. My number one concern is, of course, fire. Where I live, it is scary. We have done tons and tons of tree cutting on our property, around our property. If a fire does come through there, I mean, we just evacuated at 2 a.m. not that long ago and had to leave and kiss our property goodbye. We got very, very, very lucky not to have it burn. In the last year, we've had at least 8 fires, 8 on that street. Luckily, I thank goodness Chief Cepeda has really done a great job of getting his guys there and getting that knocked down, but 8. Most recently, CDF last Monday was flying over our house, putting out another trailer fire that someone should not have been living in. Who knows what they were cooking in there to have a fire. My second concern is the safety of our neighborhood. Theft. We've had our tools stolen off of our property. We've had my son's fishing pole stolen out of the back of his truck, and we live behind a locked gate. So they're coming in through the side of the property, and through the side, and stealing things from us. Dogs, my 65-year-old mother was chased by a pit bull. You guys know my mom, many of you up there know who she is. She was chased from in front of Pomo School all the way home. She was running as fast as she could to not get bit by a pit bull. The children of Pomo. I don't know if you know this, but they're in the little playhouse there at Pomo. There have been people sleeping in that playhouse at night. They're using our kids' water fountains to bathe in. It is disgusting. Not to mention all the people who are walking by there and talking to our kids. Just think about that for a minute. The trash, environmental health, it's a huge safety problem. Where are they? Has environmental health been out there to see this? Has our health department gone out there? There's dead animals, flies. It's grosser than going to the dumps, and the dumps road is maintained. I know you all truly care about this town, or else you wouldn't be sitting in the seats that you're in. I know many of you personally, and I know your hearts are here. I'm not going to complain without being willing to provide some ideas, or let's just call them suggestions. Number one, let's establish a safe, cleared, open area somewhere within this town for these homeless people to live. They are our people. They're from here. I know them. I know their children. Let's do something for them. That's it. Can I keep going? Okay. I like to see this do something. We need to bring in behavioral health, drug and alcohol counselors, Department of Social Services, and I know our school board will help with those kids in any way that we can. We need to help them get back on their feet. Find the owners of the property. Find them. Make them clean up the mess. It's their property. I keep mine clean, and I clean up their mess too. I can't tell you how many dump loads when I'm going to the dump, we stop and throw more trash in on the side of the road. Get the cars out of there. I have a piece of paper here that I'd like to show you, and I think you might have it already, with the city lots that are owned, the ones right next to the Sparks house. Those are city lots, and it is definitely a fire hazard all through there. The rocks that are there on the corner, my dad actually put up there to try and stop them. The cars that you see flipped over, my dad took his excavator up there and flipped them over to try and keep people from dumping more in there. We're doing our part as residents. Next thing, let's bulldoze the roads. Open them up. Those are city roads. Open them up so that it's easy, so that the police can get up there and access where the mess is. If the roads are bulldozed and it's cleaned out, they're not sleeping next to the Smarts house in that old dump mine area right there on the left-hand side. They're not sleeping there. They're sleeping up where nobody can see them. If the roads are open, people can actually go up there and see the mess, clean it up, and make it better. Thank you for the increase of police presence. We definitely do see more police going on East Lake Drive, but I'm not sure they're going up and through the mess where the people are actually living and getting them. We need to rouse them up and wake them up and get them out of there. Put dumpsters all over this community. We all know that the people that are living there, it's not just their mess. People are coming in because they can't afford the dump fees and dumping there. So put dumpsters all over the place in the village, in each avenue where it gets picked up at least once a week where people can go to. The amount of money that we're paying for these dumpsters is much less than the manpower we're having to use to clean them up with the bulldozers and cleaning. So I know you can't comment. I know you hear what I'm saying. I invite you to meet me. I'll be happy. I have a lot of time right now. And I will be happy to take you in my Kawasaki mule and give you a ride and show you. So most of you know how to get a hold of me, and I thank you for listening today.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you. And last, Chris Telefaro.
I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to be here. As my wife stated eloquently, our family has done a lot to try and help that area. So some suggestions, as you have Measure V, they've done a lot of the paving on East Lake Drive. So continue paving those roads, open them up. And if you need assistance, I work with DDD, I can get people to go out there and help clean up the trash. So those roads can be utilized, so people, and the police force can go down those roads and make sure that they're not hanging out there. I had a whole speech and my wife stole my thunder, so I just want to say thank you guys.
No, you can't comment. Thanks, Chris. Thank all three of you for your comments. We will take this to heart, and I would encourage you to continue to talk to staff as necessary on specific cases, and not commenting directly, but I think it's certainly something that we're aware of. So, thank you. Are there any other public comments? Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Dale Feller.
Dell, could you come up to the podium?
Well, thank you, that's what I was going to ask if I could. Because I didn't fill out a card.
That's all right, you can still come up here. You're an old Lake County guy. An old fart.
Well, you got the old, right? Thank you very much. My name is Dale Fellers. I live at 14020 East Lake Drive in Clearlake. And I bought that piece of property back in 1970. And so I've seen a lot of what has happened and not happened over the years. And although I've been in and out of the United States and overseas with my job, but for a lot of years I've been back for over 30 now, I guess. And at any rate, what Jessica and her husband and the others have mentioned to you is only a little bit of what has happened over the years. And there's a few things I don't understand. I would like to understand is that there are signs all over out there saying your tax dollars at work, and then all of a sudden the roads are graded. And the road of East Lake Drive has never been accepted by the city of Clearlake since 1980. And I don't understand why all of a sudden, in the last few months, this is happening. They opened up East Lake Drive again to pour out onto Burns Valley Road, which has been closed it got blocked up and dammed up probably 30 or 35 years ago. And all of a sudden it's open, and it's just, I says, well, that's great. We have a different opportunity to go down a different road so we don't have to try to get through the school, and that's always jammed during school season, at Pomo School I'm talking about. And after a couple of months, the road was worse than the other road than we had in Clear Lake or in Lake County. The junk and the cars that were dragged out there, it just, it was a disgrace. It happened just unbelievably quick. And all the work that went into it was pretty much a waste. Now they're out there again, and it's probably less than 5 or 6 months, I'm guessing. I'm older and I don't remember well, but anyhow. They're now going through and grading again, and Jessica's husband mentioned about it being paved. It's not been paved since it used to be the old state highway. And not many people ever knew that, but that had pavement on it, and it was a U.S. California state paved highway. And that goes back a long ways. I have maintained it for a lot of years just in the area that my property encompasses down there. But as they say, this has now become a destination point for the homeless and all the junk that they can carry with them or whatever. This was cleaned up several years ago by the city, and they piled it up in big, huge piles, and they got rid of it, and they paved the roads again. And less than 2 years later, the place is twice as bad as it was before. There is stuff back in the trees and the underbrush that's across the street from most of us that are here that have places either on the side of, say, Mount Baldy side of the road, the south side of the road. Not south, I guess that would be the east side of the road. Anyhow, there is gunshots and everything else. This has been going on for years. And I know that there's been attempts, and they're right. There has been an increased presence of police patrols out there, but before, even they wouldn't go over the roads, evidently, because they were terrible. They were just absolutely terrible. But nobody goes through there, and that's a fairly prominent area in the sense, not prominent because people are prominent, but because of the size of the land. There's a lot of taxes paid by the owners for that area. And the taxes don't represent what is taking place there. It's just a garbage hole. And I'm sad to see it, and I'm hoping that the council can take a look at it and maybe find some appropriate action to take to help us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fellers. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close public comment. Move on to the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and will be approved by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the council or audience requests otherwise, or if staff has requested a change under adoption of the agenda, in which case the item will be removed for separate consideration. Any item so removed will be taken up following the motion to approve the consent agenda. Are there any changes or thing to be pulled from you?
I move we approve the consent agenda item.
It's been moved by Vice Mayor Slotin and seconded by Council Member Overton. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody against? Motion passed. Okay.
Mayor Kramer, I've had a request for a short break. Is that okay with the council?
Sure, we'll recess for 5 minutes. Reform at 6:30. I'd like to bring the meeting back to order. 6:31, it would appear. Okay, I guess we're what, at item 11?
Yes.
Discussion and direction regarding the purchase of a street sweeper. Mr. Flora, or?
Yeah, so as you recall, we had a discussion about Public Works equipment a month or so ago, and you requested that we come back with some additional information. So Public Works Superintendent Baker has compiled that and will give the council an overview.
Good evening, council. As Mr. Flores said, last month we talked about, asked for direction, we got it. I did get quotes for used, for new, and for a diesel hybrid, or electric diesel hybrid. And Councilmember Overton also asked for us to reach out to CNS Waste, which we did. And the used ones I found, they ranged anywhere from $130,000, and that was for a 2012, up to as high as $160,000. And the used ones, they're actually hard to find and be CARB compliant, because once they're in stock, they get sold rather quickly. A few of the ones I even asked for quotes for, within a month, they're already gone. And we asked for new ones, quotes, and they went from anywhere from $174,000 and up to $438,000, and that's for the hybrid diesel. And after talking to CNS Waste, they are actually willing to work with the city. They're currently doing 17 miles, roughly. I think it was like 16.8. And for the additional streets, which is all the new road improvements that we've made, it took it up to about 23 miles. And they're willing to add the extra streets for free, and willing to work with us in the future if we wish to add more streets as we do more improvements in the city. And also, one of the concerns too was I told you guys about my crew taking several days to sweep and clean so they could pothole. And they're willing to work with us too, that they would send a street sweeper out and go up and down that street before we went and potholed if we needed them to. And after talking to City Manager Flora, right now in our budget, I think maybe in the future, maybe purchase, street sweeper, but I recommend maybe letting CNS Waste take those additional streets for free. I think that would probably be a good move.
How often do they?
Yeah, so I give you a little bit additional background. Mr. Baker put together a map just to so you can get an idea. So these blue lines, this is what they're doing right now. They're doing them once a month. And this is, like he said, about 16.8 miles. Our franchise agreement that we have with them says that they will do up to 18 miles for no additional charge to us. After talking with them, they're willing to add in all of the new road projects that have recently been done. And that's about 23 miles, and they're willing to do all that for no extra cost to the city. Don't touch that.
I did it.
No. And so we talked a little bit. I mean, they're willing to do it more frequently. They're willing to do it weekly if we wanted. But we would have to figure out a way to compensate them for it. They have a, per mile charge. Now, there's a number of ways to work it if we would like. If we were to take these 23 miles and have them done every week, it would be about $41,000 to do that. Now, yeah, every week.
$21,000 per week?
No, for a year, for a year.
big difference.
For a year, yeah, for a year. And then there's also the option if we were to include that in the franchise rate going into the future, if we wanted, that could be worked into the rate, and then, you know, the ratepayers would actually pay for that additional sweeping. You know, the way we left it with them, of course, before hearing what direction the council has, I mean, with our budget, I mean, you know, we had hoped to maybe see something used at a little more reasonable price, but, you know, $200,000 is one of our road projects for next year, and we really think that we should be spending that money on asphalt if we can. And, you know, we really appreciate CNS, their willingness to work with us. You know, one thing that'll be interesting to see when they, for example, I think we've talked about this before, you know, with the council too, like Phillips, for example, because of all of the gravel roads that access that, it gets pretty messy. And once they start sweeping it, you know, how long it kind of stays clean. They're actually going to do all 23 miles tomorrow. Yep. So that's kind of where we are. You know, that's the options that we've identified, but we're certainly thankful for CNS being willing to step up. So we had thought that maybe we give it a little bit of time, see how we think the 1 month frequency is, possibly come back, and then you know, we want to give them some advance notice if the council did want to say, you know, do it twice a month or every week or whatever, to have plenty of time to work it into the rate increase potentially next year. And this amount would be about a 1.8 or 1.9% increase in the garbage rates.
Councilwoman Overton, I think you were first on the...
Matter. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I thank you for getting this information. I appreciate that. I do think that that's not something we should do right now because I want to do our projects. Street sweeping is wonderful. It does keep our roads from, because as those rocks get up there, they do start deteriorating our roads away. So one of the things that would help with the roads, though, is when we do these roads, back in the Mideast, they actually pave back on, there is no dirt roads. If you're driving down a main road, so much, it has to be, if it's in view, it has to be paved. And the reason why is because all that dirt and rock that comes up onto the road, we know deteriorates it away. That's the reason why we need them swept, is because we don't want them to happen. So I would say, personally, is if they'll take in the 23 for no cost, I think that's what we should do right now. And if they're sweeping it tomorrow, maybe we can just kind of wash the roads and see, how often do they really need done? So then that would give us an idea, since they're really going to do them all. That would give us an idea of and maybe, because maybe not all of them need done all the time. Maybe it might just be the ones on Phillip that need done more, something like that. So that's my suggestion.
Councilman Purdock, I think you were the next one up.
Thank you. First, thank you, Mr. Baker, for bringing this to me, bringing it to the council. It's imperative that we keep our streets clean. It's not just for unsightliness, but as you know, our drains get clogged, and that compromises the road surface, compromises the work that's being done, and would set us in a backwards, I think, position. So thank you for bringing that to us. I want to be clear, though, that you said the cost for doing the new projects once a month would be $40,000 per year.
No, so there'd be no new cost to do the extra.
Okay.
They're willing to do the 23 miles once a month. If we wanted to bump that up and do it weekly, that's where it would cost $41,000 a year to do it every week, the 23 miles.
And I still think that would be cheaper actually than buying a new a street sweeper for our personnel. I mean, when you look at our time, benefits, everything else for one of our employees to do that, I think that's actually a bargain.
Yeah, and they just bought the $280,000 sweeper that's on the list here. So.
Right. Thank you.
Councilman Harris?
So I have a couple of things here. One thing that I would say is that regarding Moss and Davis, have we looked into the idea of having the county pick up the additional frequency of that particular road?
Well, it's part of the 23 miles right now, right?
No, I didn't. I just talked to CNS Waste and planned on us doing it.
The reason I bring that up is because obviously our responsibility on that particular road is marginal. And if we were able to utilize that same concept for the benefit of that particular road obviously gets a lot of traffic because of the garbage scenario. So I just think that it would be realistic for them to cover a portion of that road being done on a much more frequent basis. I would like to see that particular stretch of road, personally, I'd like to see that done weekly, because I think that is probably the biggest influence of dirt and debris, because it's constant traffic and it's always driving out into the dumps and tracking back, especially during the wintertime. It gets really bad, and that tracks back all the way back into our city. So that would be one aspect that I'd like to look into. And then the other thing is I do think that we need much more frequent, but obviously it's going to get expensive if we get a lot more frequent. And if we do go more frequent, I don't believe that I wouldn't consider the new paving job that we just did to be as frequent as our primary roads. I mean, if we were to express particular interest in that particular area that we just repaved, it's really a focused effort at that point on that one residential area. That's my personal opinion. So I think that sticking to the main thoroughfare roads would be more important. And I kind of feel like that one of the things that we discussed and you had brought up is that sweeping a road before we go in and do a patch repair is one of the issues we have as well. Now, these are the areas that we sweep on a regular basis, but wouldn't it be advantageous for us to go ahead and have the street sweeper at least once a year go through and sweep every paved road in our city? Or is there an impassable scenario with overhead stuff? That's the sort of thing. I think the truck is about the same height as a garbage truck, so I would imagine it would be able to get everywhere a garbage truck could get. But it just seems really beneficial for us to at least one time out of every year to have the truck or the sweeper go around and sweep all of the city streets that are formidable streets. Because when you guys go through and do patch repair, having that additional bulk material off of the roadway surface, I'm sure would make it much easier to do your job. Does that sound?
That sounds correct. And I can talk to CNS Waste. I could get some numbers for you.
Okay, and then
Can I interject a little bit? I mean, I think they may be willing to do it. I mean, I did ask them when we talked to them about, doing certain streets more frequently than others. And I mean, I think they probably would do it, but they want it to be, they don't want to come and do 2 streets if they're coming out here. They just would rather do all of it.
Right.
you mean as far as Moss Davis?
Yeah.
Okay, totally understood. I'm just bringing that up because I'm thinking that particular stretch, I feel like should be a shared responsibility. I don't think we're sharing that responsibility right now.
Arguably, under the current agreement that we have with the county, under preventative maintenance, as long as they're, we kind of get there okay ahead of time, arguably they could pay for it. But the thing is, right now, we're not paying anything.
Nothing's paying for it. So.
The county? I don't think so.
Right, but the reason I brought that up is because that's our current frequency. But if we increase our frequency, we increase our cost. So if we increase our cost, I think we should share that cost. That's all on that particular item. I appreciate that. I do understand that they wouldn't want to come for just that. But I really do want to focus on the idea of doing all of the paved roads at least once a year. I mean, and I'm sure that's quite a few miles. There's no doubt about it. But ultimately, if it makes, I'm sorry?
Yeah, about a little over 60.
That's really not that bad. I mean, if you think about that and how much time it could potentially save you not having to mitigate all the additional debris on the road when you guys go in as your crew to do your patch repair, So I just see a real benefit to that. But, we did bolster the franchise fee already, which could be utilized for multiple things. Obviously, we could do more bolstering to accommodate this for an ongoing future issue. But we did have some room there in our current franchise fee. So just a thought to kind of get moving on that. But no, I totally appreciate that you brought this to us, and I appreciate Councilwoman Overton's suggestion there, because obviously utilizing a third party is much better than us first buying the product and then maintaining it and then running it. So yeah, there's a lot more infrastructure cost to us having it. So no, very much appreciated.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. Vice Mayor Slotin.
I'm all in favor of trying to utilize Clearlake Waste as much as possible. I mean, no capital outlay, more we can spend on roadways. I do like the idea of maybe once a month or once a year doing all the streets. I can see certain streets where a lot of debris has come down during the rainy season that it might be helpful to maintain some of the streets that are underneath there, taken care of a little bit better. So that's my point of view.
Councilman Purdock, you have something else?
I do. Thank you, Mayor. To tag off of what Councilmember Harris said, when you're doing the patchwork, do we have a pull-behind sweeper that you could do just to prep the street before you patch?
What we have is actually a gas-powered
Right.
broom, and that's what they use.
Right. Right. Okay, so you do have that.
That's
to
what
kinda
we have. That
Clear the
and we-
debris.
We have good old-fashioned elbow grease.
Elbow
with-
grease,
With
yeah.
push brooms.
Good, thanks.
But I think, they would be willing, I mean, we talked to them about, like the example Mike used before about Harbor Lane and having to go in and do all that work. I mean, they'd be willing to work with us on projects like
No,
that.
I
If we
understand.
gave them enough notice to come in and whatnot. So, they've been super flexible in trying to work with us.
I understand that, sir. I'm looking at the Lakeshore Drive, San Joaquin, those that were most impacted by the sulfur fire, and there's still a lot of gravel and debris on the road, and they just did a bunch of patchwork out there. So I was just thinking maybe a pull-behind sweeper for their daily duties. I didn't know if they had one or not. Thanks.
Okay, are there any public comments on this? Come up and state your name, please.
Cheryl Ullman, 4649 West 40th Street. I've lived in a lot of areas on primary streets as well as residential streets. Primary streets in some of the communities I've lived in get swept about twice a week. They don't get swept more, and that is heavy traffic, like you can't almost get out onto it. I live in a residential area that might get swept once a month. So, to say we're going to sweep all the streets, and I'm looking at your map, and Highlands Harbor is one thing that jumped out at me. I can't imagine we would be sweeping those streets all the time. But definitely your primary streets where you're wanting to keep the new ones healthy. The other thing is, as you're coordinating your sweeping all the streets, maybe that really good sweep on the days they're out working prior to doing a project, especially if you're doing potholes and sealing of the streets, would really help eliminate what has now really become a problem of eroding the streets and the neighborhoods around them. So I thank all of you for your comments, and I agree with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, I'm going to bring this back, and I have one final comment. I think we got a little bit beyond the actual subject here, which is regarding the purchase of a street sweeper versus not. I think that at the cost projected, was it 21 or 41,000?
41.
41,000 to do everything weekly. I think that's a bargain, and I understand for the year. I think that's a bargain. I think it's, in my opinion, why buy a sweeper if they'll do it for us weekly on that number of streets for the year. And then if we have additional streets that need it, I think we can address those as needed. So I will ask for a consensus, I think, is not to purchase a street sweeper, but other, pardon me?
Not at this point.
But rather to go with CSM.
If I could ask for more clarification, I mean, it seemed like most of the council members were indicating let's just move forward with sweeping the 23 miles monthly. Mayor Kramer seemed to indicate he would prefer just doing it weekly. So I'm wondering if the rest of the council agrees. I mean, we could move forward with that.
Let me go
Discuss
beyond
those
that.
options
Do we need to do it weekly?
Well, that's why we don't really know. We didn't feel like, and that's why we thought we'd just let them do them all monthly, keep an eye on some of the key ones and see how.
My point was, even if we did it weekly, it'd be worthwhile. So that's where I think we're beating this one to death. unless you have a real new thought here.
Well, if we're going to negotiate the idea of weekly or monthly, I was going to have a comment. So
Okay,
are we
go
still
ahead.
hashing that out? Then, if we're going to go and do this thing weekly or monthly, I don't see it being viable to incorporate the new little Highlands Harbor area into the sweeping pattern, because that's just flat unfair to everybody else that lives on city streets in the city of Clearlake. The primary roads, I totally make sense, but if we're talking about, we're talking about sweeping regularly arterials and collector streets, mostly arterial streets here, right? But all of a sudden, we're doing a very segregated residential area that just got a new paving.
Well, the idea was to just keep up on the new projects.
I do totally understand that, but that fits right into the $40,000 a year, I assume, because we're increasing to 23 miles, right? So that being factored in, we're spending money to, if we're doing this weekly, we're spending money to go there every week and sweep one little priority section of the city. To me, that just doesn't seem fair to the rest of the citizens of the city. That's my personal opinion. I would have a really hard time justifying why one particular neighborhood gets a once a week sweep and everywhere else in the entire city doesn't. So that's my opinion on that. The arterials, I'm totally on board with the idea of sweeping it more often. Weekly would be fine. But again, Moss and Davis, we need to go to the county for responsibility.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. Councilmember Purdock.
I just, again, we're looking for consensus and direction. I think it's great, let's do with what they're offering us for free, but I would like to see something down the road brought to us. I'm looking particularly in the fall months when we've got a lot of leaves and debris that are going to plug up our drains. I think the sweeping more frequently would be worth the extra expense, even on the new harbor lane especially, because they have trees. Those trees will plug up our drains, and that water backing up on the street will cause damage for what we just did. So it's just good maintenance sense. So anyway, that's my comment, just to move forward.
Councilmember Overton.
Okay, so to clarify what I said, I said, let's go with what they've offered for free. And I think it would benefit us to get a quote on what they would do on I don't think most of these streets need every two, but let's watch the streets, see if they're going to need to be done. 1 week, what do they look like? 2 weeks, what do they look like? 3 weeks? We may need to do them more often, but it may be twice a month and not every week. So my clarification is go with what we've got. I understand what you're saying about Harbor, but hopefully as these other roads get done, they'll be incorporated into the street sweeping. Do we want to take a project that we just spent all this money on, and we know that as things get cluttered up and dirty, it starts depleting the road really fast? So I'm okay since we're not paying for it for Harbor. If it ever got to where we're paying for it, then we'd have a problem. But I say right now, go with what we're getting for free. Let's see what the roads look like every week and determine from that point on, bring back to us, and we can determine from that point on if we want to move with more street sweeping on our arterial and collective streets. Right? Yeah.
And that's actually why they're going to come tomorrow. So we have a benchmark for everything they do, all 23 miles tomorrow. So we have a benchmark. And
Makes
we can
sense.
start monitoring and watching exactly how often they should come.
So then,
I think that's what we're, I
Then
think
the-
that's what I was trying to get across.
okay, then to sum it all up, the consensus is let's take the free monthly, see what it looks like, come back to us at a later time when you know a little bit more about where we're going with it. I think it's time to move on. Item 12, consideration of designation of voting delegates and alternates for the League of California Cities Annual Conference in October. Mr. Flora.
City Clerk Swanson.
City Clerk Swanson.
Honorable Mayor and council members, the League of California Cities Annual Conference this year is scheduled for October 16th through the 18th. And at this meeting, the League membership considers and takes action on resolutions that establish League policy. In order to vote at the annual business meeting, the City Council must designate a voting delegate, and if additional council members are attending the League meeting, it's prudent to designate an alternate. So at this time, members of the council who have registered to go to the annual meeting are Mayor Kramer, Vice Mayor Slutin, and Councilmember Overton. So it's prudent at this time to make a motion to designate one of them as a voting delegate and up to 2 as alternates.
Okay, Council, just further information, Councilmember Overton has been our delegate for a number of years, I believe. I was her alternate last year. My question to you then would be, do you want to continue as a delegate?
I would love to continue as a delegate.
All right.
I'll move that, Councilwoman.
Well, I think we do have to go to the public comment on this first. Is there any public comment with regard to the delegate? Okay, seeing none, now I will bring it back and entertain a motion.
I move that we appoint Councilwoman Overton as the voting delegate to the League of Cities annual conferences in October.
Second?
Hold on. And I'd like to just add on that, I'd like to also include Mayor Kramer as the second.
Alternate.
Alternate, thank you. Getting tongue-tied.
Okay, a motion has been made to nominate Councilwoman Overton as a delegate and myself as the alternate. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Congratulations. Yes, well, we have a couple months to talk about that. Okay, item 13, discussion and possible direction regarding city response related to PG&E's public safety power shutdowns. Mr. Flora.
Mayor Kramer, members of the council. So, as your council's aware, in response to PG&E's infrastructure being identified as a cause of various wildfires over the past several years, the company's developed a plan to reduce the likelihood of future fires caused by their infrastructure. One of the techniques they've identified and has been approved by the California Public Utility Commission is what they are calling public safety power shutdowns. So this is an event that's based on forecasted weather information where they shut off power in an area determined to have a high probability of sparking a wildfire. And so I want to go through some details of what needs to happen, but PG&E has a video that I thought I would show. It's about 3 minutes long. That gives a pretty good overview of their plan. So we can start with that.
Public Safety Power Shutoff, or PSPS, is a precautionary safety measure implemented after the 2017 and 2018 wildfires that may proactively turn off power lines when extreme fire danger conditions are forecasted using our network of weather stations. While communities in high fire threat areas are the most likely to be affected, all PG&E customers should be prepared for possible public safety power outages. PG&E will only turn off power after we carefully review a combination of important criteria. The factors we will consider include a red flag warning declared by the National Weather Service, forecasts of strong winds generally above 25 miles per hour, and wind gusts in excess of approximately 45 miles per hour, depending on location and site-specific conditions, such as temperature, terrain, and local climate. Low humidity levels, generally 20% and below. Critically dry vegetation that could fuel a wildfire, and on-the-ground, real-time observations from PG&E field crews. If a public safety power shutoff is expected to affect your neighborhood, we will send safety alerts at different intervals before turning off the power. Because extreme weather threats can change rapidly, our goal is to provide notice through phone calls, emails, and text messages to customers 48 hours in advance, again at 24 hours, and again just prior to turning off power for safety. Updates will also be shared through social media, local news, radio, and PGE.com until the time power is restored. PG&E will do additional outreach to customers enrolled in its medical baseline program as conditions allow. To make sure PG&E has your latest contact information, please visit pge.com/mywildfirealerts. If PG&E temporarily turns off power for safety in your community, customers should be prepared for multiple days of power outages, depending on weather conditions and if equipment repairs are needed. In order to keep everyone safe, PG&E crews will inspect the power lines and equipment by vehicle, foot, and air, looking for any potential damage, and will turn the power back on once inspections are complete and the lines are safe to operate. We advise you to think in advance about your family's needs and how you might be impacted in the event of a public safety power shutoff or for any emergency. Do you have a personal safety plan for all members of your family, including pets? Do you have a ready-to-go bag in case you have to leave your home for an extended period of time, which includes non-perishable food, 1 gallon of water per person per day, medications, flashlights, and batteries? Do you have multiple evacuation routes planned? If you own a generator, is it ready to operate safely? Do you know how to open your garage door manually? Do you have cash on hand and a full tank of gas in the event ATMs and gas stations are unavailable? Are your mobile phones fully charged? It is important that our customers make a plan to keep themselves safe during wildfire season. To learn more about public safety power shutoff or for tips to better prepare you for an outage, visit pge.com/wildfiresafety.
So, just for the community, a quick overview of some of the key points in there. The first thing everyone needs to do is sign up for alerts through PG&E's website so that you're notified. Prepare a plan for your family or business. If you can afford a generator, buy one. Possibly make arrangements to spend time with a relative. But prepare a kit of water, medication, non-perishable food. Fill your vehicle with fuel and have cash on hand, because most businesses won't be able to accommodate credit card transactions if the power's off. We've been doing a lot of communication with local businesses and other facilities to see what their plans are over the last week, and I can tell you most people aren't prepared. But for the most part, banks are going to be closed or have extremely limited ability to do any transactions. Few, if any, ATMs will be working, and so it's really important that you have some cash. And we've been also spending some time looking at our city operations and trying to prepare for that. We're working on a plan, but that plan is focused at this time on continuing normal operations during a public safety power shutdown. This facility has a generator that should allow us to operate pretty much normally through any power shutdown, which is obviously is extremely important for the police department. But at this time, we intend to have all city staff here working normally. We should have internet connectivity here because of our fiber connection, but that hasn't been something we've been through since our fiber connection has been installed. So that's not 100% yet. But one of the main issues that we're working on is maintaining a fuel supply. We have only diesel storage at our public works yard, and we don't have any city-owned gasoline storage. Our police department did an analysis, and between PD and Public Works, historically during some type of emergency event, we've used approximately 120 gallons of fuel a day. So, you know, you think of a 3 to 5 day event, it's going to require us to have a plan for fuel. According to my communication this week, there will be no fueling stations in the city of Clearlake that will be open and operating during an event. None of them are prepared for that. Because of our public safety responsibility, we should have a high priority in getting fuel deliveries. There are Westgate Petroleum and Redwood Coast or ER Energy in Lower Lake are planning, even though currently neither one of them have generator backup because they have above ground tanks, they're planning to be able to provide fuel delivery. And so Mr. Baker is working on identifying some solutions to having mobile fuel storage available for the city. I thought Chief Cepeda was going to be here. He may have had some incident tonight, but he has graciously offered us access to the fuel storage facilities at the fire department if we need them. But my goal is for us not to have to rely on him for that, only in a dire situation. It could be an issue with getting fuel deliveries timely anyways, because there's going to be a lot of demand. There's not a lot of folks that have that capability within the county if there is a really large-scale outage. Our traffic lights, we have 2 sets of them. They have no battery backup. As part of our research this week, we identified that. So we are working with some folks who can install battery backup and set it up so that we can run them off of small generator power. So we are working on that. I've given direction to Public Works to purchase some portable generators to allow the Public Works staff to do some things at the shop, because we don't have a standalone generator power in the shop or the animal control facility, so we're going to need to have some power available out there to keep those operations at least running on a limited basis. And then we've also talked with all of our staff about their personal preparedness, because we would like for them to be able to come to work and support whatever needs to be done here. And of course that starts with them having a plan personally for their family. So a number of community members and others have asked about a cooling center or some type of shelter being established by the city. This is the opportunity for the council to give alternate direction, but at this time I'm not recommending establishing this for several reasons. PSPS is considered a man-made event. It's created by PG&E trying to eliminate or lower the risk of wildfire, and it's not considered a disaster. Therefore, state or federal reimbursement of any activities that we do to respond to that event are not going to be available, at least at this time. There has been some discussion, as I understand, at the state level about freeing up some funds, but I don't have anything to report at this time. There is some potential that may happen at some point, but I'm not overly optimistic that it's going to happen in the short term. This type of event could last for several days. There could be many of them during the fire season, and we feel like the city needs to maintain its normal operations to the extent feasible. If a center is open here, there's no way that we can provide access for the entire community or even a large part of it. And so that's why anytime I have the opportunity, the message I'm trying to spread is that we should be providing resources to the community to help them prepare their own family and business and make sure that they have a plan. Because if something happens and we do need to respond, we're going to need to respond to those who are most medically fragile and not those who just didn't prepare. So opening a cooling center and or a shelter would require, city staff leaving the planning counter or the public works crew to staff any type of shelter. And we don't really have the depth of staff to be able to staff something on a 24-hour basis. Red Cross is not going to show up in this type of event and help us or provide bedding or food. And we don't have funding to provide that at this time. Even without new expenditures related to this, the frequency of public safety power shutdowns, depending on how frequent they are, they're going to impact our city revenues. Sales tax, TOT tax. We get a franchise fee from PG&E. And when I got the annual report, they pay us once a year and they send a monthly breakdown. You can tell when they shut the power off for one day in this city on the amount of revenue we received. It's about $200,000 a year that we normally receive in franchise fees from PG&E. So it's not going to send us into bankruptcy, but all these things, if it happens a lot, we're gonna see a hit from it. And then, of course, there's just other miscellaneous fees for service, whatever it may be, that fewer people are going to be doing business with us, and it could impact what we have projected for this year. PG&E, we are having conversations with PG&E's government affairs folks, and they're considering establishing what they're calling community resource centers. There haven't been any final plans right now. They're looking at potential sites throughout their service area, including Lake County. And as I understand, they're supposed to try and have all the information gathered and identify potential sites by the end of July. It sounds like that they're looking at 2 potential sites within Lake County. In this case, PG&E would provide all staffing, equipment, cleanup, everything. But these would not be cooling centers. They would not be shelters. This would be something that they plan to have open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. It would be either an existing facility or a tent with generators and air conditioning, allowing people access to information, hopefully internet connectivity, and a way to charge their phones or other devices. They wouldn't be providing food or that type of thing. So it would be very limited, and I want to make sure that my concern about just talking about this before it comes out too much is that I don't want the community to have the expectation that PG&E is going to come in with a big shelter and give them everything that they need, because that's not going to happen. So there may be a shelter in the city. We've shared with them a few sites. Apparently I found out yesterday that they had looked at some additional sites. We shared with them using Austin Park as well as the community center. And they had also identified Walmart as being a possible location to put up a tent, and because they're kind of looking for a lot of parking, I guess, and relatively level asphalt spot, which that's kind of the biggest one that we have here. But if there is a shut-off, not here, but in another section of Lake County, there's no guarantee that even an identified site here in Clearlake would be open. So it's just a lot of unknowns, and we'll kind of see how that shakes out as they continue to work on that program. So, I'm sure that the council has a lot they want to share. I'm sure the public has some thoughts about it, but my recommendation at this time is to, direct me and staff to continue planning to maintain normal city operations to the extent possible, and then to continue providing updated information to the public as received by PG&E and other sources. And again, plead with our community to prepare for a public safety power shutoff event and not rely on the city or county to house, feed, and clothe the unprepared. So, however, if state or federal funding becomes available, we would reassess the opportunity to provide expanded services to those that are medically fragile. And I would add that I haven't confirmed with Chief White, but I was given access to PG&E's portal this week that's supposed to be a database of medically fragile and other critical facilities. And I don't know if Chief White has reviewed that, but I did request additional information from them because my review of the information shows only 3 critical facilities located within the city of Clearlake, none of which are city-owned facilities, and there were only 25 people on the medically fragile list, and I find that a little hard to believe. So I'm trying to find out, when we're getting the real information, but we do have access at this point. So with that, I would attempt to address any questions that council has.
Thank you, City Manager Flora. Council Member Overton, you were first.
Okay, so I'm curious if we have a diesel, so I'm going to start with the gas, the fuel. We have a diesel container to carry, have so much on hand, is that correct?
We have a tank at the public works yard, yes. We just don't have a way currently to transport it anywhere.
Okay, So it's not a standalone where you pull up, you get your gas just out of
You
the...
can. I mean, a vehicle could drive out to the yard and fill up with diesel. But, for example, the generator here or at the community center, we have no way to transport it. We would have to rely on a vendor to do that for us, which they should be available.
Right.
I'm more worried about the gasoline for the vehicles than
Well,
I am the diesel.
And that's my next question. Is there a reason why we don't have a gas tank out there also? I mean, if we have, is there a reason why we can't get that? We should have it as a city. We should.
There's not a reason that we can't. It requires some additional level of work and expense and permitting, just because you have to have secondary containment and so forth. My hesitation in doing that is we're planning to move the public works yard, so I hate to spend a lot of money on doing that, and that's the reason that we
agree.
haven't moved forward.
But when we get our new public works yard, we are
Absolutely,
definitely
that's in
going to
the
do that.
plan.
Okay, because that was my concern, is like when we do move, I know it's too much to do now, but when we do move, we need to make sure we have those containers. I just can't believe me, as a city, that we haven't had those all along, because with emergency facilities that we have to continue on, no matter what, I can't believe that with the vehicles taking gas that we do not have that. So I was very surprised to kind of find that out in the first place. So yeah, let's get that going. Second off, on our lights, is there a way to put our stoplights on solar, where we have solar backup?
I mean, I think if we had the battery backup, they might be able to charge them on solar. I'm not 100% sure on that.
So just curious, maybe we can look into that or something to see if there's something solar, we can do, since we...
And I did fail to mention, but the plan that we have, even if the power was shut off today, is that Public Works has extra, like, sandwich board type stop sign things that they would go out and put out there. But, it would be nice to be able to at least have the red flashing lights, or even have them operating for a while.
Right.
It's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the quote we got was $8,500 per intersection to get the battery back up and allow them to be wired to plug a small generator in to keep them operating, which seems like it's probably a good bang for our buck.
So we'd have the battery, but we still have to plug a generator in to keep it running.
You don't remember how long the batteries would last?
The batteries are going to last. He wouldn't give me no guaranteed numbers.
Of course not.
He said standard, they last 4 to 6 hours on full cycles. And after that, they're going to go into a 6-hour cycle of flashing red. And after that, they're going to shut off.
So I think if we'd looked into the solar, I think if there's a way to do solar, I think I'd look into that. I think we should look into it.
We can check into that, yeah.
Yeah, before we go buying something without knowing if there's solar that we can go, that might be more beneficial to us for a cost that's, sounds like it's going to be, $20,000, approximately by the time you're done with everything. If we could look into solar, it may not cost us any more than that, so if it's possible. I don't know if it is or not. So, and as far as, I have had a lot of calls, of course, because of the senior center, on cooling things, and I basically have told them the same thing that you said tonight, be prepared. Problem with seniors, that they're, most of mine are all low income, and they don't have the money to get prepared. So I do think we need to, for the vulnerable people that are on these, I worry about the ones that are on oxygen, and I know that some of them have sleep apnea machines and stuff. Most people can survive, by sitting up in a chair and sleeping instead of laying down on those. But I do worry about the people who are on oxygen and that are low income, that cannot afford to buy. So I think we do need to have some kind of secondary something in place for those type of emergencies if it happens. So I would hope that maybe PG&E, that we could talk to PG&E and find out if there's something they might be willing to help if that does happen with at least those type of people. I'm going to be looking for a grant to see if there's maybe small, portable, smaller generators. I'm not a generator person. We just talked about this on the radio. So you can do some research and see if there's something smaller that we can get for people that have those type of machines that will last a while. So researching that. But I think maybe that might be a conversation we can have with PG&E to find out if, at least on those type of people, or the hospital, what's going to happen when those people, because that's kind of what I worry about, because I do have clients that, from the senior center that are on oxygen. They're the ones I worry about.
I mean, that's something that Chief Cepeda's been worried about, because, he thinks that, most of those folks are going to end up at the hospital, and so.
They'll be too overwhelming. It kind of happened before. They were down the hall. They were everywhere. And I think that in order to maybe not make that happen, that maybe we can have a secondary plan. So maybe we can just all talk and see between the hospital, the city and the fire department, what we can do with those type of people that have those machines. I'm not saying we can help everybody during those type of, but the ones that are vulnerable like that have to have that oxygen, what are we going to do? They will die without it. I don't want that on my, I don't want that to happen, so.
As I mentioned earlier, it would be helpful to know what kind of number we're looking at.
Right.
And I think it's more than 25, so.
Well, I'll do some research myself, too, on our clientele. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Overton. Councilmember Harris?
So my concern would be, again, the elderly and infirm. Beyond that, as uncomfortable as it may be, up until the last 120 or so years, we have lived throughout history without air conditioning, but it is uncomfortable. But we will, the average person will get through it. Making arrangements obviously makes sense, but that's unfortunately not, or we're not capable, not capable of addressing every single person. But absolutely, we need to have some focus on the elderly and infirm. So that's my.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. Vice Mayor Slotin.
Two things. One is, will the traffic lights on 53 be operational on a power shutdown?
Well, I don't 100% know the answer to that. Do you know?
Which, I was reading the old baseline list. What location?
On Highway 53, Caltrans's lights.
Yes, Caltrans will keep the lights on. They're going to install generators.
Oh yeah, we did get communication on that. So yeah, they plan on it would basically be the same setup as I understand of what we were talking about, where they would just have a portable generator that would be chained to the light standard, and they would keep fuel in it. So yeah.
I am really concerned about Councilmember Harris and Councilmember Overton on the medically fragile and the person that is on oxygen and no income, no way of even getting to a facility that can, when they can plug in their equipment with. We as a city do have some responsibility to make sure that these people are taken care of. I know we can't open the door. I get that, but at the same time, I think we have some moral obligation to make sure that we take care of these people. How? I don't know, it's a.
We need to talk.
It's whether it's 100 people or 500, we don't know yet, so, and it's kind of ironic that PG&E is putting these power shutdowns to kind of cover up for their own ability to provide power. There are numerous countries that they don't have these issues because they put their lines underground. If you look at the old cities in Europe, it's hard to put power lines underground, but they do it there. But here it's just wide open, and I think at some point in time, like they said at during the campfire, that they're starting to put their lines underground. That's the only way to really solve this issue. So.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Slotin. Councilmember Purdock.
I know that the city has some information out on the website. We're trying to bring public awareness. My only ask, I do believe we have some ownership in this, in just trying to get that message out. I've spoken with some medically fragile. We've had people contacting the hospital, and they're stocking up with some tanks and other equipment that they'd be able to, if they can afford it. So I like your position, Councilmember Overton. If we might be able to collect data on who they are, have their, emergency contact information, I think that would be a benefit to them. I know that the hospital is trying to ramp up, and of course, we have the generator, we're going to be open as well, but we're not ready for that type of response for people to come in. So we're asking again that people prepare as much as possible in the event that this is going to happen. So I was just thinking media, working for maybe PSAs, that type of thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Purdock. Does the public have any, please come up to the podium, Patty, and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Patty Duke. I live at 4950 Spruce Street. Lincare and Mendo Lake and whatever other oxygen supply companies would give you the number of your people that are on BiPAP, CPAP, and I don't know if we have any ventilators in this city or not. But this hospital does not serve all of our population, so they wouldn't have the records for everyone. So working with the oxygen supply companies to find out the numbers and who's on what would be very beneficial.
Yeah, that could only happen if the clients have signed over
True.
the rights for them to do that, which most of them, I'll guarantee you, did not.
Well, they can give you numbers, though.
So I can go through my list that I have at the senior center because they have, almost all of them have signed over for us. And I can get our particular information. The hospitals can get their information.
Right, right.
And we might be able to ask for general numbers, like how many do you have
That's
in
what I meant.
Clearlake? Yeah.
That's what I meant,
So, and see if we can match them up. That's as good as we
Yeah,
could do.
okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Duke. Cheryl.
Thank you, Cheryl Ullman again. I guess I have two comments. I think it's really be careful what you say about generators, because there's something called backfeed. So if you just plug a generator into your house, you have to be aware that it feeds back into the system. And so there's some issues around that. So I know you know better, and that's not what we would do, but just be conscious that not everybody does. So I know I have a small generator, and the only thing I would use it for is to keep my refrigerator running. Everything else can sort of go. The issue around the number 25 from PG&E, I think that you're all trying to look at what you can do here, but I think if we really work with the community who are on those particular pieces of equipment that need that, they need to register with PG&E because they get special communication and notifications through that process. So if we're going to be out trying to work with that community, we need to get this 25 number up to where it really is within the PG&E system as well, so they get better communication and more consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ullman. Mr. Sabache? Supervisor Sabache, excuse me.
I don't even get to introduce myself.
Would you please introduce yourself and tell
Bruno
us where
Sabache,
you live?
City of Clearlake. The situation, there is no winning solution for what's going to happen. It's just really unfortunate. It's going to be an emergency that we don't get to treat as an emergency, especially for those that are medically fragile and the elderly. As I'm listening to the conversation, which I really appreciate, I'm thinking about the program that the police department has called YANA. And I think that something similar for the medically fragile might be an important way to look at this. If we can gather all the phone numbers that we can of those that are medically fragile, maybe do a screening and seeing, do you need a phone call? Do you need a phone call? And seeing what that list looks like, then that might be a manageable list where we can get volunteers during a power shutdown to come here and reach out to those individuals so that they are not alone and that they can ask for the help. And maybe since there's a generator that will be feeding the city, we know, well, this individual can be accepted inside here and they can plug in and do whatever their needs are. That might be something that can be done since this is a public building. And I know that we've done that in the past during emergencies where we had coffee and we had breakfast foods here set out on the table. So I think that that might be an opportunity. And of course, working with the hospitals, because the hospitals, I know when I worked for a home health and every time we had an emergencies, we would reach out and call those that were slated as medically fragile and in need of help. So something that I know the program that works really well. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a large staff to be able to add that much more, but if we can replicate that type of program and work with the entire community to reach out, I think that might be a good way to go too. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
So the senior center has a program like that, basically, and so maybe it would be good, since we kind of already, trying to create the list for the emergency for this year, that we maybe just take that list and add to that, and keep it into one spot where most of them, I'm going to say, probably 85 to 90% are seniors. Then you have your others that are just disabled. It might be good to keep it with the senior center as a one location, and then everybody knows where it is, because they are the most vulnerable people, and we deal with them on the most reality. We're going to be probably the first ones that are going to worry if something goes down. We're going to be the first ones that are going to worry about who are we going to contact to make sure that they're okay, over what the city and everybody else is. So it might be. So I'm willing to take that on as part of our program. So we can just kind of work with everybody and see what we can do. Maybe have a meeting and see. And again, we should have started this last year. We do these things at the last minute, and it makes it very frustrating, because now if the PG&E goes out tomorrow, we've talked about it, but no plan in place. So I really hope that this year we get all these plans in place, so that next year we're not doing the same thing at the last minute, thinking, well, we need to do this. So so I'm willing to take that on, though, if you guys want.
Thank you, Councilmember Overton. Mr. Sabache, you have a do-over?
No do-overs. You're a supervisor now.
I didn't use my 3 minutes completely.
Yeah.
I believe that there's also a public safety committee. Is that correct? Is there? Because maybe creating a checklist of things that might not be taken care of today or this summer, but at least something that can be worked on throughout the year. Because you're right, we forget about it because there's other issues that come up as we move on into different seasons, and then we tend to remember right when we're faced with it. But if we can create some sort of ad hoc committee or some sort of public safety, which I thought there was, but maybe it's a road public safety thing. But that might be a good idea. And if that list that you have can also be coordinated with the list that Mr. Flora has from PG&E, so that we can make sure those seniors get registered with PG&E, that would be another great thing to do. Thank you for the explanation.
And Chief Cepeda, for that matter. Are there any other public?
Just want to clarify, though, that the list that PG&E has given, Chief Cepeda, Chief White, and myself have signed non-disclosure agreements, so
Right.
I'm only speaking in very general numbers about that list, and we can't share it with anyone else.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Are there any other public comments? Bringing it back, Chief White.
Although we can't share the contents of the list, I can tell you that during the last public safety power shutoff, when we had struggled to get this list, at that time there is just over 150 addresses. So clearly, obviously, things changed, but there's an issue with what we're getting through the portal now versus what information we were given last year during this. So just so you know, in terms of some rough numbers.
Do you have some new?
I just have a question, and I realize that you guys cannot give us the information, but those people can be contacted, just like we have done. There is a whole disclosure thing, and you can check off like different organizations that they will allow us to give information to, and maybe we can get PG&E to contact those people to see if they're willing to share their information with an emergency group, whatever we want to call it, So it might be just a thought. Then that way we can all our information can go into one spot. If you have a little bit, I have a little bit, and it's all over the place, it's probably not going to do us a whole lot of good because we might be calling the same people.
I know Chief Cepeda has a list because he's pretty familiar with.
So maybe we can get together and maybe sit down and get a plan on that type of a list.
Thank you, everyone, for their comments. City Manager Flora, you did a great job. You obviously have spent a lot of time on this, and I know Chief White has as well. And it's good information. It is frustrating that we don't have help from anybody else, but certainly understand where you're coming from and your concern for our ability to pay for this if it happens multiple times this summer. I think the consensus, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I know you all will, but I think our concern for the medically fragile is a thing that we really want to be sure that we, if there is anything that we can do, whether it entails use of the community center or whatever, that we try to do that. So that would be my only thought on it, and I don't know that we need a specific direction here, but keep going with what we're doing. And I think going forward, maybe we need to put a long-term plan in. I think you've been kind of working on the foundation for that.
At the staff level, we've been starting to put a formal plan together. But, you know, we're not getting caught in the planning paralysis, because there's a lot. I mean, we don't know when it may happen, right? It could. There's already been one this year. But I did want to point out, this isn't on our webpage that we have set up yet, but we should be able to get it up there really soon. So this is a list. Some members of the community started a sort of a resource list, primarily because they were frustrated because no one else was putting it together. And so it will continue to evolve. It's a Google Doc that can be updated, so we'll embed it into our website, and then as it's updated, it'll be live there. But not every business in Clearlake is in here, but staff helped me. But I went in and put pretty much all of our key businesses in there, and the status, whether they have a generator, whether they're going to be open, what their phone number is, what their website is. And so there's some real good information for the community to be aware of. For example, all of the water districts we have in the city expect to have normal operations. The sewer district does as well. So there's a lot of good information. We need to get it up on the website so that folks can access it. It has been floating around on Facebook a little bit.
That'll be an excellent tool going forward. Okay, I think we've concluded our discussion on the PSPS subject. Moving on, city manager and council member reports. City manager Flora.
I thought I was going to get a break, but
you want a break?
Got to take a breath there.
So just a few updates. Mentioned this a few times already, but you know, we have only about half of our properties are homeowner properties here in the city of Clearlake. Half of our population is rental housing, and so we are having another housing fair Saturday, June 29th from 11 to 1 here in City Hall. So if you or someone are interested in transitioning to home ownership, there's a lot of programs available, particularly for our community. So please come out and get some information and see if there's a program that works for you. A few updates on our public works projects. As you know, there's just a lot going on. Our grading and potholing continue. We are working to identify an area of gravel roads within the city to do a test run of a double chip seal and see how it holds up. And so staff have been working on identifying a location where there's good drainage and it has a high likelihood of lasting. And so our staff, including Mr. Schwartz, have been working on that, and so we expect to bring some information back, hopefully at the next meeting in July, for the council to potentially approve moving forward on that type of a project. We want to see if that's something we can do and transition some of those key gravel roads more into a more sustainable system. So excited to see how that plays out. Moss Davis is now done, as you know, Highlands Harbor. The Civic Center project here, they started paving today and will finish tomorrow. Striping and signs will be in next week. The Austin Trail over across Lakeshore Drive, those plans are underway, working on that. The Austin Park plans are we ran into another snag in not getting complete plans from our designer. We have we didn't think it was really possible. We've turned up the pressure again on them. And so now we're expecting our 100% plans on July 15th because we're very anxious to get that out to bid this year. The bids for the Meadowbrook project were open today. We had 5 bids. The apparent low bidder was below the engineer's estimate. We were very pleased to see how some of the bids came in, especially this late in the year, and to get that many bidders. And so, as you recall, there was a base bid and 2 alternates as part of that project because we weren't sure how they were going to come in and wanted to give the council flexibility in awarding as much as possible. We're likely going to be recommending awarding the base bid and 1 of the alternates for an approximate total of $1.1 million. To do the full project would be a little over 1.3. We reviewed all the budget numbers today, and I feel like it's a little bit of a stretch, particularly with our kind of stagnant or less optimistic Measure V revenues. So funding this project would require a mix of Measure V and pulling some additional gas tax, some fund balance that we have in our gas tax fund into that project to go ahead and get it moving. At this time, we're going to recommend a special meeting next Tuesday to award that project. It's late enough in the season that we'd like to get it moving and not wait till the next regular meeting. So I'd like to get a quick poll of the council and see if at least 3 of you are available, say at 3 p.m. on Tuesday. I got 1 thumbs up.
Can it be like 2:30?
Yeah, we can be flexible on that. Yeah.
It'd be 2:30. I could do it.
2:30?
Wait until my phone warms up here.
This is next Tuesday?
Yeah.
The second?
The second.
Yeah, I'm available in the afternoon.
You still have time to celebrate afterwards. Okay, so it sounds like we have at least 3. So we will plan on doing that. So just other quick update. We have, I'm on the board for the Tourism Improvement District and the Economic Development Corporation. We've had our regular meetings on that this week and last week. We have also held a special committee meeting this week of the Business Attraction and Retention Committee focusing on broadband development. So there is some progress on that. Supervisor Sabatier was there representing the county. We intend to have a presentation on the status of broadband infrastructure within and around the city of Clearlake and that availability to the council, hopefully in the next couple of months. And then there's a couple of groups, the Upstate California Connect Consortium and the Geographic Information Center, all of which are based out of Cal State Chico, that focus on helping rural communities, including ours, expand and improve their broadband infrastructure. They do all this for free, and they've been wanting to help us for a while, and so we finally decided that we think it would be a good idea if they helped us. They've actually developed a draft plan for Lake County, and so we're going to be, we want to have a presentation to the council on sort of the status, and then the thought is probably around November about trying to call a joint meeting of the 2 city councils and the Board of Supervisors, again, sort of on the 1-year anniversary of the Strategic Economic Development Plan where you all met in Kelseyville last year, and review that draft broadband plan for Lake County. So I wanted to throw that out. If you have any other ways you would like to see it done, feel free to come and talk to me. And then finally, I'm going to be in Yosemite next week. I'm not going to be here. So I will have somewhat limited access to my phone and email. I'll be leaving Chief White in charge, so if you have any critical issues, please contact him.
Okay, well, I'll be calling you just for that.
Well, it'll be a short one, and our Public Works staff will be here to address any questions on that item. But yes, I'm hoping Chief White can be here to take care of any other questions you may have. And as a final point, Chief White wanted to have the opportunity to give you an update on some of today's police department activities.
Good evening again, Mayor and members of the council and members of the public. I actually have two things. I'm going to squeeze in one. Code enforcement has been extremely busy, focusing on vegetation abatement, and just by the numbers, they've opened up since May 1st approximately 500 vegetation cases. They've been able to close out about 275 of those cases, so significant effort. And in the Clearlake Park area, we did a big sweep a couple weeks ago to start tackling the abandoned vehicles out there. They tagged 32 vehicles and recovered 2 stolen vehicles, so you'll start seeing those being towed out of that area. Today we did a wide spread operation throughout the city. We partnered with the probation department. We also included code enforcement and animal control. We visited a variety of individuals that were on probation. There were 18 subjects that were arrested, which included 8 felony arrests and 10 misdemeanor arrests. To give you a sense, there was numerous drug charges, individuals in possession of nunchucks, possession of stun gun, felon in possession of a stun gun, individual in possession of a billy club, a felon in possession of ammunition, another felon that was in possession of ammunition, individuals in red tagged residences that also had drugs and were in violation of their probation terms. And most importantly, as you're aware, we unfortunately had a homicide that occurred with a shooting. Our detectives and other staff have been actively investigating that case. As a result of that investigation, we've identified 2 suspects in that case. And I am pleased to announce that we made an arrest several hours ago during the probation sweep of one of the suspects. We are pursuing a warrant for the second suspect, and we are in communication with our federal partners to assist in locating the second suspect.
Thank you, Chief White.
And I would just add on to that that under Chief White's leadership and the policy direction of the council, the criminals in the city of Clearlake are understanding that we're being very aggressive with them, and it might be in their best interest to move somewhere else.
Yay!
Amen. Okay, that's your report. Council member Murdoch.
I have nothing to report, Mr. Mayor, but I would like to remind everybody that we do have the 4th of July events happening next Saturday that the Lions Club is so amazingly put on for many, many years, and I hope to see everyone out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Council member Harris.
I have nothing to report, but I do have some future agenda items at the end.
Okay. Why don't we finish reports and you can.
Right.
Council member Overton.
Okay, well, I do have a few things to report. I was excited that we were invited to the California Water Service Emergency Workshop, and along with our Public Works Supervisor and another Public Works Superintendent and Supervisor. We went over there to it, and it was very educational. I kind of remembered some of the things. I'm in the process of doing our emergency plan at the community center there for evacuation, and they had really brought up some really good points that you can't fail to forget. You realize it when you see it, but we just tend to not put it in. I really want to thank them for doing that and inviting us. They didn't have to, because it really was kind of for their water district people, but they were very nice to invite us, and I was glad that I went. And what really was is they did a command station, and we got to sit there and either participate or watch, and you think you know what's going on. And then when he says, "Oh, you can go around and look at things," you find out you have missed so much of what everybody's doing. There's a lot to it. So it was kind of nice to see that you don't, even sitting there, you don't see everything and hear everything what everybody else is doing, but there's a lot to these emergencies. Really put me into a whole different perspective of respect to anybody that even sits in any of those chairs. Bless them. I am putting out in our newsletter for our seniors all the information that PG&E had sent to us. So that will help hopefully get the information out to a lot of seniors to be prepared. And the 4th of July, please buy your tickets for the fireworks from the Lions. That is really, they really do a lot of good things for our community, and so they do have tickets on sale for raffle items, and they have some really awesome raffle items. So please see, Tatanka has them, Bob's Vacuum has them, a lot of Lions around. Please go buy those tickets. And then we are having at the Senior Center a burger and beer tomorrow night, $10. Very inexpensive, and live music. We have a live band, so you cannot get that anywhere. You can't even go to Burger King and get it for $10. So please come down and support the center and just have a good time. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Council Member Overton, and thanks for reminding me of your burgers and beer tomorrow night. Vice Mayor Slotin.
Yes, I attended the marketing committee, but first I want to mention also that actually Councilmember Purdock was attending the Innovation Summit that's put on by Adventist Health and Hope Rising things. Very inspirational, as they always are, by the way. So, also you mentioned the November Kelseyville. What do you call it again? I'm sorry. Is Dr. Alice going to speak again there?
This time we don't have plans to do that. The thought of the EDC board was that we would try to do something on an annual basis and try to get all the entities together and, have some focus on part of implementation of that strategic plan. I mean, the broadband thing was a key priority focus that was identified there. So,
I've found Dr. Alice's presentations always very enlightening, and I would encourage that the EDC to kind of give us a report card. Have we made progress? Because if we keep doing these things and we don't measure it, then why do it?
Great idea. I'll bring it to the board.
The other thing is that we had a marketing committee, and I'm glad David is still here. He's taking the bull by the horn and actually are doing a lot of great things, on how to promote the city. And we're going to have signs pretty soon up that direct us to the different facilities within the city. A mural on the side of a building that is, I think, your building, right?
Yeah, it's the center building.
And some business maps are being created, so it's all exciting stuff. Thank you for David for doing that. I appreciate it. And that's my report.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Slotin. I don't have anything to report. I guess we could report on the progress of the shower bathroom trailer. We have the sewer hookup is nearly done. A couple of little stumbling blocks, or we hit a wire that we didn't intend to, or the contractor did. But that's been repaired today, I believe. So I want to thank you again for your report on the PG&E. I was really, I thought that was really thorough, and certainly gives us a reasons why we can't jump out there and be the be-all for everyone. And have a good time in Yosemite next week. You will be back for the 4th of July, though? No, going to be gone for the whole thing. Well, for everybody else, I
Change of plans, I'll be here.
Everyone else, I hope you do come out, the public, to support our 4th of July parade and the Lions spectacular fireworks display that they put up every year. And David, I have to reiterate what Dirk said. I think your energy on my conversations with you this morning, I think your energy is really great, and I really look forward to you doing some great things with publicizing our city and our county. So thank you.
If I could momentarily interject just to beat the drum about David's work. He also has created a website for sort of downtown Clearlake that's highlighting events. I think it's ready to go live today, and we'll have a page just for the Soapbox Derby and all that sort of stuff. So he did a great job on it, and anxious to see what you all think of it.
And by the way, I've been asked to be a judge on that. I understand the two of you are going to both be entering, so I just want to.
All grease, yeah.
So just to clarify, you'll be judging the art competition. The speed competition will be based on a stopwatch, not, you know.
And again, those waivers will be signed before.
So, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Councilmember Harris, you had a future agenda?
We have a do-over.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
was just, maybe just if you could give us an update and tell the public how they're going to be able to participate in the soapbox derby, like really give some information out there. Like, is there applications for them to get already? Are they ready for them to pick up? What is the criteria? Where do they get the information from? And I know you're going to have a website, but it might be nice while we're on TV to get a little bit.
I think Tina wasn't here today, but I think she put it on Facebook, and the website will be out. But we have the registration forms and stuff. I'm just not 100% sure if it was all published on the. Do you know, Melissa?
We should be having those ready by the parade. We're going to have those available at the worm races.
Okay.
And we're going to have those uploaded to the website next week.
Yes, okay.
There will be a entry in the parade with the soapbox car to help promote the event that Mr. Baker constructed.
Oh, are you in it as well? That's going to be a super size.
He has a weight advantage.
Well, the car that you guys see in the parade doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the actual car I'm going to use. But yes, my car will be in the parade.
All right.
Good. We look forward to seeing that. And I guess we also should mention the Shakespeare at the Park event, Taming the Shrew.
Yes, that'll be over here across the street at the Old Austin Resort, August 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, I believe, the first weekend in August. So it's a free event open to the community.
Bring your own chair, is what I recall. I look forward to that. Okay. Now.
I have a couple things actually to kind of touch base on the pretty significant involvement of our community at the beginning of this meeting. I would like to see if we would collectively agree to the idea of putting together some sort of a committee to address the possible options that would positively influence the area of Clearlake Park that was brought to our attention today. So I do believe that the citizens that came here are very, very driven. They very much want to participate. I believe we have collected their information. So I'd like to put together some sort of a task force type committee to start looking into what options are available to us in that area. And does that sound like something we would have?
Do you want to limit it to just that area? Because there are other areas that have that same problem.
I would agree with that there are other areas that have the same problem. I don't necessarily feel like that so many areas so dramatically and directly impact the community that they're in, and it's right next to a school. And that's very concerning for me. It always has been. I just feel like there are some steps that could be taken. So anyways, if
Just put it on the agenda and we can discuss it. Yeah.
Right. That's what I just wanted on the agenda so we can discuss it further. And then
I'm for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we all are.
Another aspect of that topic is I know that when we increase the franchise fee for the waste disposal, one of the discussions for increasing that was to provide more 30-yard dump garbage receptacles for situations where we have large-scale garbage accumulation. In those areas in particular, we know that we have an ongoing large-scale garbage accumulation. I firmly feel like we could address that in some way or another by just putting a 30-yard garbage receiver out there and maybe on an interval pick it up. And I do believe that there are CC4C is very active in that area, and I think they would be very happy with us to have provided these 30-yard dump because it makes their job a lot easier. Also, the citizens, I'm sure this would be something in that discussion, participating and getting some garbage picked up in the area as well. But I do believe that if we have people that are going to come there and they're going to get rid of their garbage, it would be nice to have them putting it inside of a thing as opposed to on the ground. We know they're going to come and continue to do it, so it's at least worth looking into. We did allocate funds specifically for programs like that when we negotiated the increase to the franchise fee. That was part of that. So just as something to bring up, and I would like to. Right, I would like that put together with. I just want to make sure that that's identified as an issue that we need to have addressed. And then the last item is, I firmly believe that we need to kind of immediately look into a properly sized fuel supply to accommodate the need of our police force and public works. We have far too many emergencies in our community to not have the ability to keep our vehicles fueled for an extended period of time. And I do know for a fact that there is mobile secondary containment options. So, job sites, you can see job sites pop up when they're doing huge renovations on roadways and highways. Well, they bring their entire infrastructure and then they take it with them when they go. And that same thing could happen with us, but I think it's well worth spending the money, assuming that it's reasonable. But I think it's well worth spending the money to go ahead and identify what the costs are and bring the costs back to us for approval or disapproval. But I'd like to see that happen. Personally, I'd like to see that happen soon.
So you'd like to direct staff to
bring back the cost so we can.
We can do that. I mean, my plan was to identify a good option, and if it's within my purchasing authority, just purchase it without bringing it back to the council. But if you would like to bring it back, we can do that.
No, not necessarily. I just feel like
that's what we pay you for.
I just thought that we just discussed it slightly, and in the discussion, we said the reason why we wouldn't do it is because it requires secondary containment, and I know for a fact that there is mobile secondary containments that you can have for a fuel storage tank. Mike Baker has some information. All right, he's done.
Thank you. Oh, wow. Oh, man, that was quick. Actually, City Manager Flora already has given me direction to do that, and thank you guys for the direction, and I've already met with them. We've actually looked at several portable tanks. I'm trying to get some more quotes. It's just a matter of people sending them back to me. And I've also reached out to Chief Willie Spada to see if they would be within the county's compliance for being double-walled and not needing secondary containment because of these tanks are double-walled already.
And I don't know, we didn't talk about any specific range of time, but I think it would be reasonable to say that we would want enough fuel storage for 2 full weeks of no access to fuel. So that's personal, and anybody else could chime in on that as well. But I think that instead of just looking for a few days' worth of fuel supply, I think we need to anticipate there could be as much as a couple of weeks, maybe even longer, that we could go where we don't have the pumps running and that sort of thing. And not necessarily just from the PG&E scenario, but we have all kinds of catastrophes that seem to happen here, and we as a city need to operate properly during those catastrophes, and one of those key elements to operating properly is having access to fuel. So so it's just, I think it's vital that we take care of that situation. So when you're sizing these things, obviously you guys are taking all this stuff into consideration. I just think that's pretty important as well.
City Manager Flores has been getting on me about it pretty good.
Righteous.
And told me the direction he would like me to go, and that's the direction I'm going.
I really appreciate all the effort, guys, very much. Thank you.
Are there any other things he's directed you to do that would?
We don't have time for that.
I see.
Mayor.
All right. Okay. I think we've reached the end of our items. We'll adjourn to closed session at this time at 8:04.